Darth Maul's blades crossed with those of his former master, Darth Sidious, on the dusty plains of Mandalore. Their duel was an eruption of fury and raw power, Maul desperate to prove he was no longer the discarded apprentice Sidious had abandoned. Sidious, despite his supreme confidence, underestimated the sheer intensity of Maul's rage and cunning. As their crimson blades clashed and the Force roared around them, Maul found his opening a moment of overconfidence from Sidious and delivered the fatal strike. Darth Sidious, the Dark Lord of the Sith and orchestrator of galactic chaos, fell to his apprentice's blade. Maul stood over the lifeless body, trembling with a mix of triumph and disbelief. He had done the unthinkable. He had killed the galaxy's most powerful Sith. But the death of Sidious was no final victory. Instead, it plunged Maul into an uncertain future, one in which he was unprepared to fill the void left behind. Sidious's machinations had extended far beyond the Clone Wars, embedding themselves deep within the Republic, the Separatists, and the Jedi. Maul now faced a galaxy in chaos and a destiny he had not fully grasped. The Shadow Collective, Maul's criminal syndicate, remained his primary power base. Composed of Mandalorians, Pike syndicates, and the remnants of various crime lords, it was a far cry from the military might Sidious had commanded. Maul recognized this limitation and understood that his path to power would not come through the immediate destruction of the Republic or the Jedi. Unlike Sidious, whose long-term schemes had corrupted the political and institutional framework of the galaxy, Maul was a warrior and a conqueror, not a manipulative chess master. He knew he could not simply replace Sidious's vast influence. He would have to build his own empire piece by piece. Maul's immediate move was to consolidate his hold over the Outer Rim. With Sidious gone, the Separatist Council was thrown into disarray. Maul capitalized on the confusion by offering alliances to disillusioned leaders while ruthlessly eliminating those who resisted. His takeover of the Separatist movement was not seamless. Count Dooku, Sidious's apprentice, posed a significant threat. Dooku, left without a master, saw himself as the heir to Sidious's vision and clashed with Maul's forces in a series of skirmishes across the galaxy. However, Maul's guerrilla tactics, combined with the resources of the Shadow Collective, allowed him to weaken Dooku's position over time. Despite these victories, Maul's influence remained limited. His armies, composed of criminal enforcers and scattered separatist forces, lacked the discipline and cohesion of the Republic's clone legions. The Jedi, still deeply entrenched in the Republic's leadership, began investigating the disturbances caused by Maul's rise. Their efforts were hampered by the ongoing Clone Wars, but their focus on Maul grew sharper with each passing day. Maul, aware that he could not confront the Jedi directly, resorted to his greatest strength: chaos. Unlike Sidious, who had used deception and manipulation to achieve his goals, Maul relied on brute force and fear. His Shadow Collective became a plague on the galaxy, destabilizing trade routes, raiding Republic supply lines, and spreading terror in both Republic and Separatist territories. Maul's intention was not to destroy the Republic outright, but to erode its foundations, leaving it vulnerable to collapse. He believed that if the galaxy descended into enough anarchy, he could rise from the ashes as its new ruler. The Jedi Council, already strained by the war, struggled to respond to Maul's growing threat. The death of Sidious had disrupted the dark side's veil, and the Jedi began to sense the shadow of a new Sith Lord rising. However, they misjudged Maul's intentions. The Council believed Maul was merely a remnant of the Sith Order, a threat that could be eliminated through focused action. They did not yet understand that Maul sought to reshape the galaxy through chaos rather than through conquest. On Coruscant, the death of Sidious created a political vacuum. As Chancellor Palpatine, Sidious had masterfully controlled the Senate, bending it to his will. Without him, factions within the Republic began vying for control. This political infighting distracted the Republic from the Clone Wars and gave Maul additional opportunities to exploit its weaknesses. Senators, unaware of Sidious's true nature, sought to unravel his centralization of power. Maul's agents infiltrated these factions, subtly pushing for policies that would further destabilize the Republic. Meanwhile, in the Outer Rim, Maul's forces encountered growing resistance from local systems tired of the Shadow Collective's oppression. These rebellions were small and scattered but symbolized the limitations of Maul's power. Unlike Sidious, who had embedded his control in the Republic's infrastructure, Maul's empire was built on fear and violence. This foundation was inherently unstable, and Maul lacked the political acumen to transform his criminal empire into a legitimate galactic power. Maul's inability to destroy the Republic directly became increasingly apparent as his forces clashed with both the Jedi and the Grand Army of the Republic. The Jedi, led by figures such as Obi-Wan Kenobi and Mace Windu, mounted coordinated efforts to track and dismantle the Shadow Collective's operations. Maul, though a formidable warrior, could not be everywhere at once. His criminal empire began to fracture under the weight of constant assaults, both from the Republic and from rival crime syndicates seeking to exploit his weakened position. Despite these setbacks, Maul was not without successes. His manipulation of Anakin Skywalker, though less subtle than Sidious's, began to take root. Maul saw in Anakin a kindred spirit, a being of immense power trapped within the constraints of a failing system. Maul sought to corrupt Anakin not through deception, but by appealing to his frustrations and fears. Maul presented himself as an alternative to the Jedi, someone who understood the true nature of power and was unbound by the Jedi's rigid code. Anakin's struggles with his loyalty to the Jedi Order grew under Maul's influence. However, Maul's approach lacked the precision and foresight of Sidious's manipulations. Rather than carefully nurturing Anakin's descent into darkness, Maul's blunt methods risked alienating the young Jedi. The Jedi Council, noticing Anakin's increasing volatility, sought to shield him from Maul's influence, further straining Anakin's relationship with the Order. As the Clone Wars dragged on, Maul's limitations as a leader became more pronounced. His reliance on terror and destruction had made him enemies across the galaxy, from the Republic to the Separatists to the Jedi. Even his closest allies within the Shadow Collective began to question his vision. Maul's hatred and desire for revenge, while powerful motivators, were not enough to sustain an empire. The cracks in his power base widened, and Maul found himself increasingly isolated. Yet, even in the face of mounting opposition, Maul refused to relinquish his ambitions. He remained a symbol of the dark side's enduring power, a reminder that the Sith could never be truly eradicated. His legacy, though incomplete, would continue to haunt the galaxy for years to come. Maul's vision for galactic domination faced challenges he could not overcome through brute force or intimidation. The Republic, despite its internal strife and the ongoing Clone Wars, remained resilient. The Jedi, while strained by the war and haunted by Sidious's death, proved to be more formidable than Maul had anticipated. Without the intricate plans of Sidious to manipulate the galaxy's institutions and personalities, Maul's attempts to destabilize the Republic became increasingly sporadic and desperate. Maul attempted to strengthen his position by exploiting the separatist movement further. He sought to rally disillusioned leaders from both the Republic and the Confederacy under his banner, but his reputation as a warlord and criminal hindered his ability to forge lasting alliances. While he managed to secure temporary partnerships with certain factions, these alliances often dissolved under the weight of Maul's authoritarian leadership style. His reliance on fear to command loyalty alienated many potential allies, leaving him with a power base that was fractured and unreliable. One of Maul's most critical miscalculations was his overestimation of the Shadow Collective's ability to challenge the Republic on a galactic scale. While the Syndicate was effective at spreading chaos and disrupting supply lines, it lacked the infrastructure and resources to mount a full-scale military campaign. Maul's forces, composed of Mandalorian warriors, criminal enforcers, and remnants of separatist droids, were no match for the Republic's disciplined clone armies. Even with the occasional victory, Maul's influence remained confined to the Outer Rim, far from the core worlds where true power resided. Meanwhile, the Jedi Council grew increasingly concerned about the resurgence of the Sith. While they initially believed the death of Sidious marked the end of the Sith threat, the rising tide of violence associated with Maul forced them to reevaluate. Jedi generals such as Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, and Mace Windu began focusing their efforts on tracking Maul's movements and dismantling his networks. Their investigations led to several key victories, further eroding Maul's control over the Shadow Collective. For Obi-Wan Kenobi, the conflict with Maul was deeply personal. Their long-standing rivalry, born from Maul's killing of Qui-Gon Jinn, drove Obi-Wan to confront Maul on multiple occasions. Each duel between them was a clash of ideologies, Obi-Wan's commitment to the light side against Maul's insatiable hunger for revenge. While Maul often escaped these encounters, Obi-Wan's presence served as a constant reminder that the Jedi would not be easily defeated. Maul's attempts to corrupt Anakin Skywalker also faltered. While Maul recognized Anakin's potential and sought to exploit his frustrations with the Jedi Order, his methods were too blunt and lacked the subtlety required to fully manipulate the young Jedi. Unlike Sidious, who had nurtured Anakin's doubts over years of mentorship, Maul's direct and aggressive approach only served to deepen Anakin's internal conflict. The Jedi Council, sensing Maul's influence, intervened to protect Anakin, further isolating him but preventing Maul from fully turning him to the dark side. As Maul's position weakened, the remnants of Sidious's old schemes began to resurface. The clones, bred for obedience, remained loyal to the Republic despite the political instability caused by Sidious's death. The Jedi's discovery of Order 66, a contingency plan buried within the clones' programming, added a new layer of complexity to the conflict. Though Maul was unaware of the full extent of Sidious's plans, he attempted to use the clones' hidden programming to his advantage. However, his lack of understanding of the nuances of Sidious's grand design ultimately rendered these efforts ineffective. Despite his setbacks, Maul's chaos-driven strategies continued to wreak havoc on the galaxy. His forces launched a series of daring raids on key Republic installations, causing significant disruptions to the war effort. These attacks, while not strategically decisive, reinforced Maul's reputation as a dangerous and unpredictable adversary. The Republic's inability to completely eliminate him further strained its resources and morale, prolonging the war and deepening the galaxy's suffering. Maul's focus on destruction, however, came at a cost. His obsession with revenge against the Jedi and the Republic blinded him to the necessity of building a sustainable power base. While he managed to carve out pockets of influence in the Outer Rim, these territories were plagued by infighting and rebellion. Maul's inability to inspire genuine loyalty among his followers left his empire vulnerable to fragmentation. The Shadow Collective, once a formidable force, began to collapse under the weight of its own instability. As Maul's power waned, the galaxy moved toward an uncertain future. The Republic, though battered by war and internal division, remained the dominant force in the galaxy. The Jedi, despite suffering significant losses, maintained their role as guardians of peace and justice. Maul, now a shadow of his former self, retreated into the Outer Rim, where he continued to plot and scheme, unwilling to accept defeat, but unable to reclaim the influence he had once wielded. In the end, Maul's rise to power was marked by its impermanence. His reliance on fear and destruction, coupled with his inability to match Sidious's cunning and foresight, ensured that his reign would be short-lived. While he succeeded in causing significant disruption, Maul ultimately failed to achieve the lasting dominance he so desperately sought. His story became a cautionary tale of ambition without strategy, a reminder that raw power alone could not secure the galaxy's future. Yet, even in his defeat, Maul's legacy endured. His actions left scars on the galaxy, shaping the events that followed and influencing the struggles of those who opposed the dark side. For Maul, the fight was never truly over. His hatred and determination, forged in the fires of betrayal and loss, continued to burn, ensuring that his presence would never be forgotten.